So I've got one more movie here on charts that I'm going to sort of bucket everything, all the content of this movie, into a category called miscellaneous. Beginning with using pictures on the plotted area of the chart, we've already seen pictures used on the chart area. We're going to also plot with shapes, Excel shapes. We're going to build some dynamic labels in the chart. We're going to take a look at custom number formats that can help in the display of the numbers for the axis labels. We'll look at pie charts that have some specific aspects that can make pie charts a little bit more useful than you might otherwise think that they are. We're going to build one more stock chart that this time includes the trading volume per day. We'll look at two different ways to display the progress towards a single goal. And finally, we're going to pay special using a linked picture that enables you to do a lot of formatting for the visual display of the chart, or any information for that matter, that can be useful if you're trying to build a dashboard. So I've got some various data set up here that I'm not going to explain at the front end of this movie. I'll explain it as we go through. Beginning with our national debt that in 2012 was over $16 trillion. And I'm going to select this range of national debt values beginning in 1984 and build an area chart by going to Insert Area, then left-clicking Area Chart. Now the first part of the movie is about inserting a picture, and we're going to eventually get to the point where we're going to insert a picture in that data series. But before we do that, there's a couple things about this chart that are just wrong. Beginning with the fact that we have two data series, because we really don't. We have one data series. But once again, Excel treats a numeric range of data as a series. And so the year, 1984 to 2012, is being plotted on the chart like it's another data series. So I'm going to go to the Layout tab, go to the drop-down menu, left-click Series, so I can select that series because I can barely even see it, and then press Delete to get rid of that series. I'm going to also get rid of the legend by left-clicking it and deleting it. And because we would probably want the chart to read from left to right going forward in time, so the leftmost data point would be 1984, I'm going to double-click the horizontal axis labels and then put a check in that checkbox to reverse the category order. And I'm going to close that. We also need to change the labels on the horizontal axis, and the way we do that is to go to the Design tab, in the Data group, left-click Select Data, and on the right side we have horizontal or category axis labels, which I want to edit, and then I'm going to select the actual labels that we want, left-click OK, and then left-click OK again. And the only other thing that I want to do is to move the vertical axis labels to the other side of the chart. And I'm going to close that. So now the chart is oriented correctly. That's a little bit of review on some fundamental things it's good to know when you're manipulating and dealing with charts. But the point of this first segment is to insert a picture in the plot area. So I'm going to left-click the shape that is plotted in the plot area, right-click to get the shortcut menu, left-click Format Data Series, go to the Fill options, and then left-click the radio button option, Picture or Texture Fill. Now, I have used this dollar before when I was sort of setting up this whole thing, and so Excel memorized the fact that I wanted to use a dollar. I could change this picture, of course. You won't have that luxury. You'll have to go to find the file that you want to insert, select it, left-click Insert, and it should be with your practice files, by the way. Closing that, we've now used a picture, a dollar bill, and given the fact that we're speaking of or plotting $16 trillion, it probably should be a larger denomination than a dollar, but it is money, and so maybe this is a better way to display this chart data. I'm going to select this chart and press Delete to get rid of it, because the next thing we want to do is plot with shapes. And this time I'm only going to select a few data points, 2006 to 2012. Go to Insert, left-click Column to get the drop-down menu of the column charts that I can construct, and left-click the first option. Once again, Excel has plotted the years as a data series, so we're going to go to Layout, left-click the drop-down, left-click Series 1, which are the years that are on the plot area, and delete those. I'm going to double-click the horizontal axis, left click the categories in reverse order, close that, left click the legend, press delete, double click the vertical axis labels, and move them to the other side of the chart. So this segment is about plotting with shapes. And the shapes that I'm talking about are what Excel calls shapes in the Illustrations group on the Insert tab. I'm going to select one of these. Let's make it this one and draw it out. And we're going to copy this into what are now the plotted columns. And the way to do this, and it's not necessarily intuitive, is to select the shape, and it is selected. So I'm going to Control C to copy that into the clipboard, which I can launch going to the Home tab and then left click Clipboard. And there's my shape. And now what I want to do is select the data series and then go back to the clipboard and either drop down and select Paste or just click on it. I'm going to close the clipboard and select the shape I don't need anymore, delete that. And so by doing that, we've replaced the standard columns in the column chart with a shape that we selected from the illustration group. The next thing we can do is build some dynamic labels. I'm going to go to the Insert tab. In the text group, left-click Text Box and draw a text box on the chart. With the text box selected, the cursor's there waiting for me to type something in there. I'm going to go to the formula bar, input an equal sign, and then select a cell, point to a cell. And when I enter, I'll left-click off of that. The value that's shown, the text that's shown in the text box, is going to be whatever is in this cell. So if I change what's in that cell and enter, the text box changes the text that's displayed accordingly. So obviously we can label all kinds of things on the chart, and if you have some dynamically fed data into the chart that's coming from one of several different places that the user is manipulating, let's say with a spin button, you can also have those labels dynamically change to describe the content of the chart. So next we want to take a look at custom number formats. And there was a whole movie done on custom number formats, and this is sort of a section of that content and an adaptation of some custom number formats that might work well for charts. And for us to go through this, I'm going to select this area, and I'm going to go to View and left-click Zoom on Selection. And I'm going to arrow over just a bit to focus on the data that I want. I got that column of data I really didn't want to show. So these custom number formats look maybe sort of complicated, but they're really not. We're going to be formatting this number right here, which is $17,819,298. When we apply this custom number format, which is a 0 followed by a comma, the comma, one comma, rounds it to the nearest thousand. The comma that we put in between the two zeros adds the comma separator. Alternatively, we can put 0.00, which allows us to show a little bit more precision in the number by including 30 to the right of the decimal place. And of course, it's still rounded to the nearest thousand because all of that is followed by a comma. We can add text, in this case K, indicating thousands of dollars. And this is just another version of what we displayed above by including the comma separator or the two places to the right of the decimal place. Or we can use the comma separator, precede the number by a dollar sign, round it to the nearest thousand, and put a K for 1,000. And the list of custom number formats over here are exactly the same as the ones we just went through, only we're rounding to the nearest million by using two commas. And since it's million, instead of K, we use M. So applying this custom number format, we can select a number, go to the Home tab, left-click the dialog box launcher in the number format group, left-click Custom, and replace what's displayed in the Type field with the 0, comma, left-click OK, and that number is rounded in terms of millions to 18 million. So zooming back out and pressing the Control key and the Home key to get me back to where I can see all the data, it makes A1 the active cell. We now want to do the same thing in our chart. So I'm going to double-click the vertical axis, go to the number formatting dialog box, left-click Custom, clear that code, enter 0, comma, and since it's already actually displayed in billions of dollars, which is 18,000 billion at the top of the chart, that's actually 18 trillion. I'm going to left click add, close that, and of course we're going to have to update the label because this is now stated in terms of trillions of dollars. I'm going to select that chart and get rid of it, delete it, and then I'm going to have to delete the text box separately. And we're going to take a look at pie charts now. And this time I'm going to use the data that's a list of the top 10 countries in the world in terms of how much money that gets spent on defense. The United States spends not only more than everybody else, but we spend more than everybody else combined in the world. I didn't want to put everybody on here. I just wanted 10 data points because when we're building a pie chart, it gets to be a bit too busy after a certain point. So I'm going to select that data, go to the Insert tab, left-click the pie drop-down list of options, and then left-click Pie Chart. We probably have too many data points actually to plot in a pie chart, but there's a couple things we can do to make this a little less busy. But along the way, to get there, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Layout tab and left-click Data Labels, and then left-click Best Fit. And when you do that on a pie chart, the labels are oriented in a way that what? Best fits the pie chart and how much space those labels have to be displayed. But there's still yet another improvement that we can make, and that's to change the chart type to a different sort of pie chart by going to Design, left-click Change Chart Type, and left-clicking what's called a bar of pie. So now the pie chart is reoriented so that those data labels that make up some smaller sections of the pie are pulled out and displayed on a bar. And that bar references, in this case, a slice of the pie that's $179.5 billion, and that $179.5 billion is broken out into the 4 different countries that make that amount up. So I'm going to left-click that chart and delete that chart. And we're going to go on to a stock chart. I'm going to select the data, go to the Insert tab in the Chart group, left-click Other Charts, and left-click the Volume Open, High, Low, Close stock chart. And what we'll get, and I'm going to move this chart to its own chart sheet so we can see it better, is a chart, a combination chart actually, where the volume is displayed using a column chart and the open, high, low, close is plotted using a standard stock chart. So the white bars are indicating that the stock went up for the day. The black bars are indicating the stock went down. The length of the line on any given day indicates the high and low price that the stock traded at, and the length of the bar indicates the difference between the open and close price of any given day. So I'm going to go back to our data and leave this chart. And we're going to talk about 2 different ways to display the progress towards a single goal, beginning first with a pie chart, and then we're going to use a column chart. So as is the case almost all the time, the data has to be prepared before you build your chart. And for the pie chart, I want to show 80% progress towards a goal. So I'm going to input my progress, which is 80% in that cell. And I've got this cell, which is taking that 80% and dividing it by 2. And this cell, which is providing a remainder of the value that's in the previous cell, that's subtracted from 50%. And then the remaining balance of the 100% of the pie chart is here. So why did I do all that? Well, it'll become apparent as to why I did that pretty quick. So I'm going to select those 3 data points and go to Insert, go to the Chart group, left-click Pie, and left-click the pie chart. The first thing I'm going to do is select the legend and delete it. So I'm going to press the Delete key. The next thing I want to do is reorient the chart. So I'm going to double-click the chart, and in the rotation options, I'm going to put in 270. When I click off of that, the chart is reoriented And perhaps at this point it might make sense as to why I took the 80% and cut it in half. Because when I plot the progress, 80%, what I want to do is plot it on half of the pie chart. So I'm going to select this bottom half, go to Fill Options, and left-click No Fill. And since this piece of the pie represents progress, I'm going to go to the Fill Options, left-click Solid Fill, and change the color to something that really stands out, like red. And then I'm going to select this other piece of the pie, go to the Fill Options, Solid Fill, and change the color to, let's pick that one. And then I'm going to select the chart area, go to Solid Fill, and change the color to a slightly lighter shade than the color we just used. And just for effect, we'll go to 3D Format, left-click an option at the top, and select that as a 3D bevel option for the entire chart area. I'm going to close that. And now we need to insert a couple of text boxes by going to the Insert tab, the text group, left-clicking text box. And on this side, I want 0%. And I'm going to space my way over, space bar my way over by holding it down to the other side of the chart and put 100%. Left click off of that. And I'm going to insert another text box right here and go to the formula bar, put an equal sign, and select the percentage of completion that we have. Click off of that. Select it again. Select it again by selecting the text that's in the box. Go to the Home tab, and I'm going to do some formatting. I want that in the center, and I want it a bit bigger. And then left click off of that. So we've got our progress towards the goal plotted using a pie chart. So that if we are only 25% of the way towards the goal, our sort of speedometer looking thing expresses that. It visually displays that. If we're halfway there, we're going to actually fill a quarter of the pie chart, but since only half of the pie chart's showing, it looks like what we want it to look like, which is we're 50% of the way towards the goal. So the other way of doing this, or another way of doing this, and I'm going to grab this and move this over to the left, is to use a column chart. And this is probably a bit easier. We've got 112% of our goal achieved. And the goal was 350. We've actually achieved 391. And we still have one more week to go. Well, that's a good thing. So I'm going to go back to the data point that we're going to plot using a column chart. And it's important, or it's a little easier when you're doing this, to format that data point as a percentage. Because when we go to create the chart by going to Insert, left-click Column, and left-click Column Chart, the data labels on the vertical axis are in terms of percent, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to move that over a little bit. I'm going to, again, select the legend, delete it. I'm going to select the chart title and delete that. I'm going to double-click the horizontal axis category and show no label at all. And of course, we can add a text box. We can get rid of the grid lines if we want to. We can reshape the chart to make it a little bit narrower. And when we finish that last week, fairly miserably, the new value is plotted on the chart. The last thing that I'm going to cover here is a linked picture. We can move these charts around and resize them. But if we make a linked picture, there are more options that we have in terms of manipulating the visual display than when we're just dealing with the charts themselves. So the way you do this is first get your chart into an area that is fairly clean. There's no data around it. Select the cells surrounding the chart. Press Control-C to copy that into the clipboard. Right-click an area that you want to copy that picture into. Go to Paste Special, and then go down to Linked Picture and left-click that. So what I've created is a picture that I can rotate, I can move, grab it and move it. I can resize the picture, and my original chart isn't disturbed at all. And when I have changes in the chart, let's delete those last 2 weeks' data, that linked picture is, as you would expect, linked to the original data, and it changes according to what that original data, or in this case the chart, looks like. So if you're building a dashboard, you could stack a few of these things up and orient them how you see fit. Now, of course, I picked up the grid in the picture, which was around the chart, but you can get rid of the grid and then take a picture to make it a little bit cleaner than I did. So that was the miscellaneous chart topics. We began by using a picture in the place of an area chart to visually display what was money, dollars, by using a picture of a dollar. We then replaced the columns of a column chart with a shape that we selected from the illustration group. We inserted some dynamic labels using text boxes. We took a look at some custom number formats. We had a closer look at pie charts and stock charts. We looked at two main ways to display the progress towards a single goal using first a pie chart and then a column chart. And we pasted a linked picture of one of our charts, which is a pay special option, which can come in handy if you're building a dashboard, so that you can reference charts from various places in your workbook instead of building them all within the visual display of the dashboard area.